So I'm excited to be part of this. And for those of you who may see it later, at the end, I've got some contact details. I'm happy to talk about some of my favorite topics here. So today I want to talk about how augmented reality and virtual reality are and will soon be used to really change the way distance works across job sites and across the entire sort of AEC value chain. So a little bit about me. I'm the general manager of Adept XR, which is a New York-based virtual and augmented reality company that focuses on learning as well as collaboration and some other things. Been at this for a long time, have been involved in virtual reality for about 7-8 years, and have been involved actually in the AEC Hackathon for almost the same amount of time. So I'm also the author of the upcoming construction and technology book, which you're going to see short at the end of the session. I'll share with you how you can get hold of me about that. But also in December 10th, we'll be doing a kind of a preview of construction and technology, both including VR and AR, as well as a much broader look at what's out there, how to access it, and how to really understand it. So back to this topic. One of the things that this year has really taught us is how to think about how to operate at distances in a way we never had to before. But even before that, distance was kind of part of VR. So let me take us through a couple things here. So the first thing to think about is construction, and the entire built environment is inherently spatial. You're dealing with 3D constructs, you're dealing with models, you're dealing with buildings, you're dealing with lots of people moving around in a large 3D space. So forever, we've been thinking about how to deal with space as an industry and as a set of processes. What's happened over time is, as the location of design and decisions has shifted from on-site to off-site to kind of somewhere in between, distance has also always mattered. Getting the design team to come to the job site sometimes is easy and sometimes is not. Regardless, they weren't always there. So, RFIs often have a distance component to them. Submittals often have a distance component to them. Change orders obviously have a bit of a distance, whether it's where they're approved, where they're presented, where they're reviewed. So knitting together the different people that are working on this incredibly complex thing we call a building has been a distance function as well as an information flow function for a long, long time. And what's happened obviously is over the last year, COVID has really changed what distance means, because it's not just a question of getting in your car and going down to the job site. You also need to control how many people are there, how they can operate together, how many people can be in a kind of a construction trailer or a big room together at the same time. And we've seen things like Zoom kind of step into the gap, FaceTime, other ways of sharing video have stepped into the gap because we already had them, we kind of knew how to use them, or the learning curve was relatively easy. But now, after about 6 months of this, we're starting to think, how can we do this differently? What other technologies are out there? So you've seen things like OpenSpace AI that allows you to take video and images and kind of snap them together into a real-time or sort of real-time picture of what's being built. But that's not so much collaboration as sort of checking and seeing who's there and monitoring. When it comes to actually collaborating, how can we do more than that? How can we blend space and blend media so that it feels like people are in the same room that are not? And that's where some of augmented reality and virtual reality come in. Now, I'm assuming most people have heard of VR. I'm assuming most people have heard of AR, but I want to make sure that we're clear on what I mean when I say that, because you do get people with different opinions about what it can mean. Let's start with a quote I absolutely love from Clay Bavor, who's the head of virtual and augmented reality at Google. VR can put you anywhere, and AR can bring anything to you. So let's think about what that means. In the case of VR, I can create any scene I want and have you there. And in that scene, you can do things and you can interact and you can collaborate and so on and so forth. AR is the opposite. You are where you are, and I can bring anything to you. So we've seen that in the past. In the case of VR, we've seen gaming, we've seen different kinds of experiences where you're in the headset and you're going wherever that is. A great example for me, back to Google, is Google Earth, which allows you to tour anywhere in the world. AR has in the past gone from a pretty simple way of bringing media that is cued by something like a QR code to now things that are a little more complicated and a little more sophisticated, like the HoloLens, which can put virtual objects into the room that you're in. But again, it's the idea that you're bringing anything to you. So this difference between what world you're in, you're either in a virtual world or you're in an augmented world, or you're in the world you're in, but you've augmented it, is sort of where we've been up to now. The funny thing about technologies like VR and AR is we sometimes get stuck by how we've heard it described by like science fiction. But real people doing this and really making products and playing around with it, you start to discover things you couldn't know until you're really in it. And so I've been part of teams and have myself been part of the creation of a lot of VR lately. And one of the interesting things you find about being in VR is it's actually a media player, which means that any other medium inside of virtual reality becomes really easy to use, whether it's a 360 video, whether it's a normal video, whether it's a picture, whether it's text or speech to text or audio. Essentially, any digital file inside of VR becomes something that's just in the air. You can move it around very easily. You can restrict who can see it and so on and so forth. So it starts to change the way you think about the experience that you're in. The same thing that becomes true of AR, because you've basically created a bubble around yourself that is almost like its own media player, which means I can bring any kind of experience to you, including another person. So what I'm encouraging you to think, and kind of the point that I'm getting at here, is what we're starting to do is once you've created a different lens to see the world through, whether it's a virtual world or an augmented world, you can do anything through that lens, which is really exciting. And it's the kind of thing that we're just now starting to learn what to do with. If you remember whether you're old enough to remember it or you've read about it, but prior to Google, nobody knew what to do with the internet because there were too many pages, and Yahoo did an okay job, but it really wasn't that easy to find things. Search became the killer app for the web. Before that, the equivalent of search was like the Dewey Decimal System. So it didn't mean very much in real life, but in the web, it suddenly became literally a game changer and completely changed advertising and some other industries. I think that we're in the beginning of the same thing with immersive technology. And some of what we're finding is that things that weren't such a big deal in the past, like moving video around and manipulating digital content, or were a very specialist thing, are suddenly becoming really easy and really native to that new environment. So that's a long discussion about something, but think for a moment about this. You're seeing virtual objects in real space. Well, okay, it's easy to just say we're going to pull in a model and away you go, but why should that be all you're doing, right? Why can't you pull in a video of somebody and have it be part of the scene? You can pull in a number of objects and do things with those objects, again, in the air right in front of you. But what's interesting as well is you can start to overlay, and now that you've got things like LiDAR on the Apple devices that we can expect to see everywhere, I think Google had something similar to that about 4 years ago. So the ability to very accurately understand the scene you're in suddenly means I may be looking through a lens, whether it's my phone or whether it's an upcoming pair of headsets, but suddenly what is real and what is virtual starts to become a lot more fluid because, again, I'm seeing the world through this immersive lens. And in the case of AR, I'm in the world itself, and in the case of VR, the whole thing is through the lens. But suddenly what's real, how I can interact with it, what I can overlay, what I can underlay so that I can see behind something and understand what's there becomes really, really interesting. So think for a moment, if I'm seeing something through lenses and it's the real world, we now know you can put things in front of it, but there's no reason that you couldn't actually have that go behind it and you can't see something that's in the real world. So that's a pretty abstract way of saying what we're starting to get to is I can not just bring you anywhere and bring anything to you, but I can make the world around you into anything that is productive and useful or just fun. So virtual objects in real space is where we are now. And you're quickly going to see people get creative about what they do with the actual space. Something that we have right now, this is a Glimpse Group product, is what if you could see virtual objects in the space you're in right now? So a lot of you will have already done something like this. With Amazon had it in their app. I'm not sure if they've deprecated, but for a while there, you could, in the Amazon app, you could use AR and actually see a product in the world with you, right? But now that's becoming more and more something that's easy to do, where you can import an object, whether it's a BIM object, whether it's a, in this case, you can see, this is just a demo example here, but you're able to not only import things so that I can see it with my phone, but you're able to dial in a number of different people that now you've got people from anywhere that are looking at the same model, the same bunch of content. So again, up on the sides here, you can see there's a video, you can see there's some text. But now what if you're able to now have 30 people from all over the world looking at the same thing, commenting with each other, and then adding what you can do in AR, which is start to comment and make notes on what you're seeing. Suddenly, I'm not just bringing space together, I'm bringing people together. The funny thing is they can be anywhere, because it doesn't matter what's in the back wall. It doesn't matter what's on the floor. What matters is I want to be together in a set of 3D objects with a group of people, so we can discuss them. We can view some media content together, whether it's images or graphics or audio. But also we can talk about it together, and we can record the session so someone can see it later. So suddenly you're starting to see distance in a really new way, where you've got different kinds of things that are distant or not distant from each other. So it could be that I'm in a different room from you, but maybe I don't care about what you're sitting on, and I don't care about what the wall behind you has on it. I just care about the media that we're sharing together. And I don't want to do it through a Zoom call. I want to do it in real space. That's what this allows you to do. And again, you can join the call together, or you can invite new people. So suddenly the ability to collaborate in an almost unlimited way becomes much more real, much more human, much more immediate than speaking through a 13-inch monitor. So it allows a new kind of collaboration where you can do things like you can circle things of interest, you can interact with the content, other people can interact with the content. And again, all of this at any distance in immediate real time. So the latency is internet speed, which is essentially Zoom. So we talked a moment ago about bringing things to you, but what about people? Right now, the best way you can do that is with Zoom. But what if you could do that with a remote expert? So there have been a couple of things out in the world, and we of course have one as well. But now all of a sudden, instead of bringing people together via bringing people together with a phone call or with Zoom, where you're hoping maybe you can turn it around and they can see what's going on and see what you're trying to have them fix or advise you on, you can actually have them point at something and it sticks. So in this case, I just grabbed a picture of an HVAC. But imagine if you can actually remotely have people point at what they want in a way that is way better than just, a little more to the left, a little more to the right. And because it's augmented reality, it sticks there no matter where you move. So suddenly I'm able to bring from anywhere an expert who can tell me in real time and very specifically what I need to do next, how I need to turn it, and whatever else might be relevant. And the thing about this, again, it's immediate, it's real time, and it allows you to hook in anyone from anywhere in the world. What is awesome about that is very often experts are expensive, and having them go to a site is a waste of time, and it means the site has to wait for that person, but also means that person obviously can't be in two places at once. Well, funny enough, this effectively means that an expert can be in more than one place at once. They can be back at the office, they can be out on a remote job site, and more to the point, they can be out at more than one remote job site. So think about this from a couple of perspectives. The obvious one is if you've got a senior person who understands HVAC better than an apprentice or somebody who's newer to the field. But there's another angle of this, and that is the producers of these machines suddenly have the ability to introduce new features and make sure they get used properly, because they can have a helpline that in 5-15 minutes means somebody can just click in, answer some questions, make sure people use it correctly, and then switch on to the next thing. The ability to roll out new technologies that this implies just is amazing, because that's often one of the big problems that people have. Is it isn't that they don't know their job, it's that they're afraid this new thing isn't going to work in their situation. or that it's just going to slow them down. But if now you can go to a subcontractor or a tradesman and say, you should use our new HVAC machine, or you should use our new welder, or you should use our new process, because if you run into any issues, we can immediately be on site with you via this tool and solve issues. From a deployment of new technology and adoption of new technology, this promises to absolutely change the way distance is a barrier and the way distance behaves as a factor for people trying new things. So I've talked about augmented reality a little bit. The next piece, though, and the one that's a little bit more mature, is virtual reality. So some of you will have come across the Oculus Quest, which a year ago really changed the game in terms of quality and in terms of ability for kind of non-gamers and people that aren't really technologically interested. I mean, to access and use VR in an easy way. They've just come out 2 weeks ago with another version of it, which is better, faster, cheaper. So VR is really coming into its own as a technology. And the cool thing about that is now you're able to do, in the past, you know, putting a 360 photo into VR wasn't so difficult. You know, and even putting a 360 photo or video that had hotspots, which you see here, wasn't so difficult. But what is happening now, because of the quality of the headsets and just the general increases in available bandwidth, is you're able to do that in real time, where you can have someone visit a job site in VR with a 360 video camera that can cost as little as $100, and of course, up from there. We're doing some of this with different types of companies, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's some other verticals. And the idea then is that whether it's in real time or also whether it's pre-recorded, you're able to actually go visit remote sites and understand what's going on there in a way that's just not possible any other way. So across these two, VR and AR, I hope you're beginning to get a sense of how these immersive technologies create what I was talking about before, which is this very different lens on the world that's beginning to blend reality, immersive technology, and augmented reality. Very exciting. We're just in the beginning of people learning to use this. And one of the key parts of technologies like this is that as cool as what we build can be, what users do with it and innovate with it winds up being even cooler. And that's what we're starting to see more and more of in the field. So in summation, I early on said VR can put you anywhere, and AR can bring anyone or anything to you. And I think what we're starting to see, what we're starting to see is that really come true, where we're blending what is real, what is virtual, what is close, what is far, what is expert, what is novice, in ways that are just beginning to be the case. And I think that this blending wasn't expected when if you went back to some of the movies and books about VR, but it's really becoming the magic that makes it all worth doing. So that's all I've got for today. My contact is here if anybody would like to talk about this, just to shoot the breeze and talk and discuss it. I'm also going to be talking about construction technology in a much broader sense on December 10th. The link is right here, just bit.ly Contact Quarterly Q420. Happy to answer any questions right now, or reach out to me if you have any other questions.